Good job, George.
Start the meeting, the invocation by Lion Jim Stonier, followed by the pledge from Marie Speck and the song by Marilyn Patterson.
Thank you for all of your blessings, and we pray that you will be with those who are suffering from so many natural disasters in the world right now, hurricanes and earthquakes, and we are grateful that the damage isn't as great as it could have been. We pray for those who are suffering losses, both of family and futures. We pray that you will help them. We pray for our losses of recent members, Tom Wright, and we pray that you'll be with his family. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve this community. Thank you for these wonderful people that we're allowed to gather with, and help us to serve and help us to do the right thing in all situations. In the name of the great I am. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of thy pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Thank you. Introduction of our guest by Lion Donna Jessen.
Bill Olson, would you like to introduce your guest?
I'll introduce him at the program time.
Okay. And then Pat Palmer.
Acting President Ken, fellow Lions and guests, for the second week in a row, his delivery schedule's got all messed up. I'm able to bring my friend Mark Denny from WCP Solutions, a great vendor and a great provider to a lot of folks in California. Thanks, Mark.
Is that it, Donna? We're going to start from the back. I would like the ladies from the Relay for Life to stand for a moment. We have the distinct pleasure for the 2017 Relay of Life. Our wonderful ladies from the Pioneer Lions Club placed 5th in the top team category by raising $6,570. Ladies, thank you. With that, we'll move right along. We've already had the report about the, let's move to the ice cream wagon next.
Here comes Hal.
We won't tell Hal that we have anybody that comes in late to sign in pays a $5 fine. Bob.
Borrow it from me. Is this Rotary now? Is this dress down there?
Yeah, you're
Hello. Acting President Ken, fellow members and guests, we took in $1,139 at the Islander Festival. So I want to thank the 12 Lions that helped out again. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've already had the report from the sock hop. Moving right along, we'll come over here to this side of the field and talk to Greg Perth. Greg, can you give us a report on your committee for tomorrow?
President Acting Ken, fellow Lions and guests. Tomorrow is United Way's Day of Caring, and we're going to do a barbecue for them at the end of the day. Got the people signed up for it. So you got Jan Searing, Dick McIntyre, Steve Patterson, Ken Botero, Greg Swanson, Steve Johnston, Lance Brigman, Doug Harvey, Judy Fromdahl, and myself. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock is the kickoff rally. And if you do want to go to that, they'll give you a ticket for a drawing for later in the day. And what they're giving away with those tickets is a full-size tool chest, Husky football tickets that nobody wants, and tickets to Enchanted Village. So, and the ones that are working tomorrow, if you don't make the rally in the morning, I'll have your t-shirts for you. In the afternoon, about 2 o'clock, 2 to 2:30, under the grandstands and that little concession deal will serve out of the front of it. So, thank you very much.
Ron Stopper has an announcement.
Extra large.
They're all extra large.
Acting President Kent, fellow Lions guests, us a early notice. We'll be doing sight and hearing band at Columbia Heights Elementary School on October 23rd, about 5 weeks from now. Just want to let you know to get on the calendar.
And up here at this front table, Gary, we have Dolly. Will you give us a report on the picnic since Kathy's not here?
Picnic is this Sunday at our house, 2 p.m. potluck. Also for Sunshine Committee, don't forget the memorial for Tom Rice is this Saturday, 2 p.m. at Trinity Lutheran. No, sorry. Picnic was 2 p.m. the following day. Noon, Trinity Lutheran, please wear yellow. Also Sharon Sishin, she's actually a little bit better, can speak better. She still wants visitors, but please call for from now on. If you want the phone number, come and see me. Thanks.
And Doug Harvey has several announcements. One with the convention, the other is the Legacy Project for next week.
Thank you, President Acting Kent. We're having after a year's work on the Legacy Project, which is the Lions Picnic Shelter, we are having our dedication ceremony next Tuesday, a week from today on the 19th at 4 p.m. at the Lions Picnic Shelter, about 17th and Nickel. Also tonight at 6 o'clock, we're having a street-to-street committee meeting. Yeah, and I'm just the chair. And if anybody wants a visitation, I'm going to Battleground Thursday, and I'll be leaving my office probably about 6 o'clock. So anybody that wants to have a visitation, come to my office about 6 o'clock and you can ride with me over there. To Battleground Lions. The meeting in a new location, which I don't really know exactly where it is. I have the address, but I've never been there. So
Pizza?
they're no longer Rocky's Pizza. No, they're at some place on Main Street.
I'll be staying home.
Okay, how about the convention?
Day after tomorrow.
Convention next week?
Oh, you mean talking about the USA Canada Forum?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you should already know this, I'm sure, but if you're not aware of it, the USA Canada Forum is next week, starting on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the Civic Center, main center in Portland, the convention center. So, which you're probably already signed up for it if you're going. But if you're not going and you still want to go, we can still get you in. So see me if you want to go.
Are there any other announcements? We do have a board meeting this coming Thursday, 7 o'clock, Bob Paul's Restaurant. We would like all the committee chairs to show up for these board meetings so we can get things discussed and get things moving in the right way. If there are no other announcements, I would like to introduce our program chair. Bill is going to take over from here. It's all yours.
Okay, Phil.
Good afternoon. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Dan Zorn, Superintendent of the Longview School District. Had he still been playing for the Seahawks Sunday, they would have won. Oh no, I was just seeing if you're awake. Different Zorn. I have copious notes here sent to me by George Raider. Dr. Zorn is originally from Kalispell, Montana, went to college at Northern Montana, and did his graduate work at the University of Montana. He's married, has 4 children who are all out and doing their thing. The youngest is a sophomore, I think you said, at Montana State, Bozeman, Montana. Dr. Zorn is a singer, and he's a really special singer because he's a tenor. And for any of you who have ever been in musical groups, you know that tenors kind of rule. So I just want to give you a quick example of how that is. There was a conductor who put together a large choir and orchestra for a performance, and he happened to be a tenor. And after the first rehearsal, one of the bassists came up to him and said, "Excuse me, but I noticed there's about 40 people in each section, except for the tenor section, there's only 2. And the director said, "Yeah, that's about right."
Is that it?
Work with me. Anyway, let's give a warm Lions welcome to Dr. Dan Zorn. Should I go from right here then, Phil? Yeah, if you'd like, or you can travel, whichever you wish.
Well, you know, I think I'm gonna, can you hear me with that? You can hear me now though, can't you? All right, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk with you a little bit. Kind of basically, I want to talk with you a little bit about our facilities bond that is coming up in November. Just kind of share with you the information relative to that. And then at the end, want to talk with you a little bit about just the school funding pieces that are out there with the new McCleary funding solution. I know there's been a lot of questions about that and just a few things that are kind of related to that. If there's questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask them as I kind of work my way through it. So as you may or may not be aware, we are going to the voters on November 7th for a facilities bond in the Longview Public Schools. We're asking for replacement of 3 of our elementary schools, Mint Valley Elementary School, North Lake Elementary School, and Olympic Elementary School. Also asking for a renovation of Broadway, which is our special education preschool center. We serve special education qualified 3- and 4-year-olds there, also in a partnership with Head Start from LCC, who serves 3- and 4-year-olds there as well. And then looking at safety and security upgrades throughout the district. It's a pretty hefty lift. We'll just kind of frame that right up front. Our request is for $121.6 million, which is, we recognize that that's a large amount, but it's something that we think is real important as we move forward as a system to just kind of keep us being able to move forward and do good things for our kids. In terms of a cost standpoint, when you look at that cost for a home that's assessed value is $200,000, you're looking at about $16 per month is what the tax implications are for that. It's a 21-year term on the bonds that would be sold that would go along with that. So we've gone through quite a process with this. This is my 3rd year. I'm starting my 3rd year in the district. When I came, the Facility Advisory Committee process had already begun. And so it's been basically 2 years of work by a committee made up of community members, school administrators, and school and teachers that took a look at the facility needs of the district. We did a lot of work in surveying the community, different community forums along the way, and then our board spent some significant time wrestling with the recommendations that came out of the Facility Advisory Committee. And so in April of last year, the board determined the scope of the projects and what it is what our ask is that's coming up in November. Coming out of that Facility Advisory process, we chose to focus on our elementary schools. I know that the high school issue has been an issue that is still unresolved in the district. It's one that we chose, that we felt we needed to get our elementary needs taken care of. We will address high school needs in the future. I've got a slide later that will kind of frame that up a little bit. But we know that there's needs out there that we've identified as a committee, in the range of $250 to $300 million worth of need with our facilities within the district, and this is a chunk of that. In that study process, we looked at the structural integrity of our buildings, but also looked at the educational adequacy of are they environments that are good for learning, good for the collaboration that's needed among staff members and among kids to be able to achieve at high levels. We're also looking at making sure that we're doing our best to eliminate the use of portable classrooms. Right now we have 15 classrooms worth of service out there that are in portables. That's really about an elementary school full of portable classrooms that we have, and we'd like to get out of the portable business, and this bond helps address that. Also looking at there's no property purchases involved in this. We're looking at using our existing property to be able to make that, to make things work. Couple things that we wanted to be sure that we did in our planning process. One, so we have a great relationship with Lower Columbia School Gardens, whose center is located over at North Lake Elementary School. It's about an acre on the north side of that property that is Lower Columbia School Gardens Center, and we're going to maintain that relationship, maintain that partnership, and maintain that acre. And with the building that we're looking at, we know that we're able to do that, and are excited about that. It's a pretty unique opportunity that our kids have in that partnership with the school gardens. We also wanted to be sure that we maintained our relationship with Head Start. We recognize that those 3- and 4-year-olds being served in through the Head Start program over at Broadway become our 5- and 6-year-olds. Same kids, they're just working into our system, and a lot of needs that are related to that. So wanted to be sure that we preserve that relationship as we move forward as well with this. In the future, we will convene a task force to take another and hopefully a final look at our high schools and where we're heading with the high schools, and get that whole one high school versus two high school issue kind of settled once and for all. But for now, we're focused on our elementary schools, and had a lot of discussion around that as we worked through it in our decision making to stay focused on our elementaries. And we've also recently created an athletic facilities task force to take a look at our athletic facility needs, because there are no athletic facilities addressed in the bond that we're going to have before you. We are asking, we're looking for ways to look at some public and private partnerships to be able to meet the athletic facility needs. We'll partner with the city and with Lower Columbia College in those discussions in looking at the community's needs as well as our district's needs in that process. That task force will begin meeting later this month. And we've been garnering volunteers to be able to be working on that as well. So there's a lot of other discussions that are out there in addition to the work that we're proposing with the bond itself. Part of the reason for the size of the ask is we really feel that we're behind. We missed a bond cycle, if you'd want to call it that probably should have happened about 2007, 2008, right in there. But as we all know, that was a pretty tough time economically. Recession hit, and it hit Longview Kelso particularly hard. And so we are playing a little bit of catch up in our facilities needs. Our last bond project was in 2001. We have done nothing from a bonding standpoint since 1996 in our elementary schools. Those bonds will all be paid off. 2023 will be completely out of debt with the present bonds that we have hanging out there right now. We also, over the last 2 years, have refinanced our outstanding bonds. Last year, that refinance saved taxpayers about $1.1 million on the total cost of getting those bonds paid off. And then this just a couple weeks ago, our board approved a refinance of the remaining bonds, which will save about another $400,000 in that. So about $1.5 million of savings that we found through refinancing and taking advantage of those low interest rates. Our maintenance program, we pump about $1.5 million per year into our existing facilities, trying to keep them up and keep them going. And I'll tell you that $1.5 million, it's very hard to keep up with the needs that are out there with our aging facilities. It's kind of, the little boy with his finger in the dike kind of a thing that we're, doing our best to kind of keep things plugged up. But there's just greater need than we're able to take care of from just that maintenance kind of a standpoint. The facilities that we've identified rated both poor for their physical needs, but also rated poor in terms of their functional adequacy, which looks at the educational adequacy of those sites and in terms of the ability to be able to create quality learning environments for our kids. Just some quick detail on this. With Mid Valley, our request is to rebuild Mid Valley. We're looking at a two-story facility that, if you look here on this is the existing Mid Valley site. The new building would go here north of that property, and the field is right there. Will provide much better access inside and out. Want you to notice here the present Mid Valley, a lot of safety and security concerns when you've got 6 separate buildings with outdoor entrances and exits into that. There's a lot of ways onto that campus. Our ability to be able to control access in and out of Mid Valley is very limited because of that setup. New construction solves that. In all newly constructed buildings, you're looking at kind of one way in, one way out. Obviously, you've got your emergency exits that allow if things were to happen, but trying to keep all of your traffic funneled one way in and one way out so that we know who's coming in and out of our schools. And there are just some concerns that we have to be very mindful of. And then there's also a lot of physical needs at Mid Valley. We don't feel that Mid Valley, because of its structure, is really, it's not a good building for us to be putting much maintenance kind of money into because of the long-term viability. So that's our preliminary site plan for Mid Valley Elementary. North Lake is another one we're looking at. It's what is that? It's about a 65-year-old building, 64-year-old building in North Lake. If you've been in North Lake, I would, in my estimation, North Lake's our building that is in the most dire need of replacement. It's just a huge number of needs we're serving. I believe we have 6 full classrooms of kids being served in portables. They're basically in a parking lot with that, and would look at a very similar construction with North Lake as you're looking at Mid Valley. Be able to serve approximately 540 kids in a two-story kind of a setting. This is the present North Lake right here. The location would be right behind that. That does a couple things for us from a safety security standpoint. It gets it away from Olympia Way, pretty busy road, gets that away and allows more space and keeps it just right off of that street there. But also just looking at entrance and exit for our buses right now. Our buses pull right in here, and they're right in between where all of those portables are. Would get rid of those portables there, and looking at that pickup and drop-off area coming right off of Ocean Beach Highway, which would just be a much better setup for North Lake Elementary. Olympic, another building that's just short of 70 years old. It's located over in that RA Long site. We would need to demolish this building before building. The other 2 we could continue to serve kids in while we went through our construction. Olympic, that is not the case. We would have to go through and knocking it down and then putting the building right here. Olympic, very similar to some of our other sites. There is a bank of classrooms right back here that all have their own exit inside and out. There's some portables back over here. So our proposal, again, we'd be able to move the building back away from 30th Avenue. Again, another very busy street. That school, that front door just sits right on 30th. Be able to move it away and improve all the access, improve the safety and security of our kids there as well. This school, the footprint of the building will handle a school of about 375 kids. Again, likely, not likely, it'd be a 2-story building to be able to serve that number of kids there. Going to get some increased capacity with the building that we're talking about, but a lot of that increased capacity is filled up as we move kids out of portables into schools proper. But we also feel that there's some future growth potential as we look at that, and also with some of the new legislation, a need for reduced class sizes, so there is need for additional space when you're looking at that. More classrooms are needed when you start jacking your classroom sizes down a little bit. This is being dictated by state law. Broadway is the oldest of the buildings on here. We're not proposing a knockdown and rebuild here. We're proposing a renovation. Done an extensive review of that building. It's an old building, but it's a solid building. The structure is in real good shape. We feel that with a $12.5 million investment in that building, looking at electricity, looking at the heating, cooling system, roof replacement, and then some other work that needs to be done on the inside of that building, that with that $12.5 million, we can continue to serve over 200 kids. If we were to build new, that $12.5 million would only serve about 100 kids from the estimations that we've made. And so we feel like we can make that a building that is viable for the next 40 to 50 years and continue that partnership with Head Start and serving our 3- and 4-year-olds who are in particular need of those services. So from a safety and security standpoint, we'd be looking district-wide at all of our sites, making sure that we're providing the most secure environments we possibly can for our kids, looking at camera use, different entrances in and out of those schools, looking at different lighting and just a lot of those different needs to assure that we have the things in place to assure that safety and security of our kids. So that what we're hoping is that with this, we're going to get updates that are going to help meet the needs of our youngest students. We're looking to serve our kids without using portable classrooms. We're looking at construction that, we figure will take care of those needs for a good 50 to 70 years well into the future, and making sure that we're going through quality instruction with that. Obviously, the safety and security pieces are taken care of, and we have an aim as a school district to make the Longview Public Schools the district of choice in Southwest Washington. And we feel that our physical appearance of our buildings, physical nature of our buildings, play a role in that. We want to be sure that our buildings themselves reflect the quality of the instruction that's going on inside our schools. Some other benefits that might be out there are economic in some respects. When you start thinking of quality of place within Longview, we feel that upgrades, good schools that are well taken care of, that sends positive messages to people that are considering coming here to do business, people that are considering coming here to live, it's a community that's investing in its children. It's really an infrastructure need that is nationwide right now in terms of not unlike bridges and roads and the like. For us, it's our structures in which we serve our kids. Estimates have about 800 construction jobs coming from this work, generating about $40 million worth of income. When you look at the direct and indirect benefits of the bond investment, it's about a $200 million payback from that. When you look at those direct and indirect costs to the or indirect impacts to the economy. So we feel that that's good from that standpoint as well. And we also believe that interest rates are ideal right now, and we don't have any idea how much longer that's going to last, but it's been quite a few years in terms of that and feel that now is the time, and don't feel that it will be any time that that money will be any cheaper than it is right now. So from a timing standpoint, we feel that that is something that we can take advantage of. Again, November 7th is the vote. Things will be mailed out. Ballots mailed out on October 25th. You're going to see some information from the district in a mailer that'll come in mid-October that will have some information very similar to what you've seen here, and we're in process of getting all over town as best we can with that. With any facilities bond request, a simple majority is not enough. It requires a 60% approval, and so it's a pretty tough row to hoe. When you're looking at getting to that 60%. In addition to that, we need 40% turnout. So it's got to be a 40% turnout from the previous election. So for here, I think it's like about 8,200 voters that'll require, because we're working off of the presidential election number to be able to meet that 40% threshold. With that, from a McCleary standpoint, I'd talk about that a little bit. There's kind of mixed news on kind of what has come from that McCleary funding solution. There is some good news that is found in that. It really does shift the burden from the local property taxpayer to the state property tax. And for us in Longview, as we look at that, our estimates show that once the full implementation of the law in 2019, that's going to result in about a 99-cent per thousand reduction in local property taxes. Now you take that 99-cent decrease there and plug that into the 96-cent increase that I talked about earlier. It's about a wash in terms of the cost to the local taxpayer when you look at that. But that's a piece that we're seeing and something that we're wrestling with. Some of the concerns that we have from the McCleary standpoint, it changes our operation and maintenance levy. That in the past, that's been a levy that we've been able to use for needs that we've identified as a district. It's now being changed to an enhancement levy, and there's a cap being put on that at $1.50 per thousand, and that's where that adjustment comes down to $1.50, and that's where the savings come from. And then the state is taking on more of that. So a little bit of it's a shell game of taking local tax dollars, shifting them over to state tax dollars. But because of where we're at in terms of our property values in Cowlitz County, it becomes a net gain for the taxpayer with that. For us as a district, it requires us to, the state fund is intended to fund basic education, and then enhancements are what we would be asking for in what used to be our operation and maintenance levy. There's still some ambiguity in terms of what is basic education and what would be considered enhancements, and that's work that we have to do in order to get that, because our levies will come to vote in February actually, where we'll have our operation and maintenance levy, and then our capital projects and tech levy that traditionally we've had in the Longview schools. So that's one of our challenges out there. Another one is a salary allotment regionalization. And you may have seen there was an article in the paper about this, that what they've done is they've looked at different areas and have identified areas that might have higher costs of living, and have assigned enhanced funding levels to those areas. Places like Seattle benefit quite a bit from that, up to a 24% enhancement in the salary allotment that goes for teachers. We're in an area where we do not get any of that enhancement in that for that regionalization factor, but we are competing in this area with districts that do get an enhancement. And places like Evergreen, Vancouver, Camas, La Center districts with a little higher property values are being allotted more dollars for salary than we will be allotted, which will make it more difficult for us to compete for talent with our teaching staff. And I'll tell you, the market out there for teachers is competitive, and we draw teachers clear from Portland. I would venture to say that probably a quarter of our teachers live south of Kalama, and then a good chunk of our teachers are coming from that Vancouver, Portland area. So that's part of our market, and so that's one of the challenges we have in staying competitive as we move forward with that. So with that, if you're so inclined, there's a lot of information on our district website if you want to jump on there and take a look at that. If you are a part of another group that would be interested in hearing me or Sandy or anybody from our district talk about this, we are more than welcome or willing to do that and able to do that. And I'll go talk to anybody, whether it's 2 people or 200, just knowing that we have a story to tell and are anxious to be able to tell that. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
I would make the recommendation that you use plexiglass windows along number 7 at Mint Valley for the hookers in the world.
Okay. All right, now I got it. All right, I got to put the golf frame on that. I got that. Okay. Yeah, but I appreciate that. Other questions? Yes. The planning right now with the construction is that we would start with Mint Valley and North Lake, because we can build that new construction while we continue to serve kids at those sites. So we would serve kids at their sites while that construction's taking place. Then when the construction gets done, move our kids from Mint Valley and North Lake into the new sites. Now we've got a place to put the Olympic students for when that demolition takes place, because we don't have a place for them. Move them out to Mint Valley for a year while that construction takes place, and do the same at Broadway. Move our Broadway kids to North Lake for that year, and then get the renovations done. Then we move kids back out to their new schools. Then we go into the demolition of the other sites. That's a plan. That way we don't have to use portables. We don't have to use church basements and other kinds of things that different districts have had to do when they get through a building project of this magnitude. Yes, sir.
Based on the fact that the oldest school, Broadway, was built in 1946 and was made of brick, is the plan to make the new buildings out of brick?
We haven't got that deep in the discussion, but I will tell you that the plan would be to make those buildings long-term viable, because I will tell you that some of the construction that we're dealing with, and I would say particularly at North Lake, there's some pretty rough construction. So we certainly know that they've got to be very viable well into the future. Yes.
The reason that question comes up is that really the three that you want to replace are stick built, and that just doesn't lend itself well to a long lasting life here.
Yep.
Brick works pretty well, and LCC builds everything out of brick. So just to throw it out there, I'd say that'd be a good.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that input.
Dan? If the levy passes, when does this all start?
If the levy passes, when does it all start? We would begin immediately in the architecture work, in looking at the design, getting the design all going. We figure from beginning to end, from passage to when we'd have all the projects done, is about a 4-year period to be able to get it done. It would take some time. We have not invested in the architecture yet, and that's been very intentional. Didn't want to, there's some pretty significant money just in the design itself. Wanted to be sure that we had that positive community support before we jumped into that. Yes, sir.
Being a numbers person, if this passes, that's $182 a year. What would the total of all of the bonds that Longview is paying now be if that goes through?
Right now, we still owe about $23 million.
No, I mean for
I've got that, Sandy, if I didn't bring that sheet, it's, no, I don't need to make it up. It's about $1.92, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, somewhere in there. I'm going to check that to make sure that I've got that right, but I believe it's right in that range if I'm, because I believe that presently it's 96 cents per thousand that is being paid presently, and then you add that 96 onto that. Is that $1.92? And so, but then there's, and there's some nuance to all that as well, as the way they finance those bonds. Yes, sir? Well, what we'd have to do is go through a competitive bid process by state law and working through it in that way, and certainly that would be something that we would very much be looking at in the awarding of that. What I can't do is necessarily guarantee that it would happen that way, because we do have to go through a competitive bid process because of the use of public funds. Yes, sir.
There was a bond that went down in flames before you got here. It was part of the reason that I think she decided she didn't want to be here. Remember that dollar amount? That bond?
I didn't do it.
Sure.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, and I don't know what the cost of that was, and it never got to the point of being voted on, but I know that it received a lot of discussion.
It was a big number like this, and there's a lot of talk in town.
Yep.
I'm assuming you're anticipating a way to handle that?
Well, this is part of it right here. Just trying to be out there.
Around too long. This is the same one.
Okay.
Dr. Zorn?
Hey,
Thank you very much for all you do. For all the meetings, and I know we go to a lot together, if you fill that with a certain beverage, the meetings will go a lot faster.
All right. Thank you.
And also, here's a membership application for a club. If you want to become a quality citizen in Longview, Pioneer Lions is the place to be. With that, Steve, do we have any finality? Don't forget some of the meetings coming up. We have a board meeting this coming Thursday, 7 o'clock, Bob Paul's Restaurant. All committee and board members, please try your best to be there. We have the Day of Caring tomorrow, and then next Tuesday we have the dedication of the Lions Picnic Shelter at 17th and Nichols at the Lake Sacagawea. With that, meeting is adjourned.